This is part one of a 4-part video series on the 12 tenets of neurotransformational coaching. This is for those of you that want to become masters at truly changing people's lives. In this video, we're going to dissect the first 3 tenets.
We're going to get into part one of probably a 4-part discussion about the tenets of neurotransformational coaching. And if you're new to our Facebook group or the YouTube channel or the company or wherever you're watching this, I would say that our main focus as a company is in this conversation of coaching for people that want to be coaches. Our main focus is to help people create the confidence and certainty that's necessary to be successful in business by being a really good coach. So the confidence and the certainty and the marketing and the strategies and all the things that people are looking for are useless without a deep rooted certainty in coaching, in yourself, in you being a product of the coaching. And it's just going to sabotage everything. And what we believe is that what most people are doing is just never, ever going to work because there's not a rooted certainty in their body. There's not a belief in the product. They are not a product of the product. And until all that stuff happens, nearly everything you try is not going to work because it's not aligned with your value and your validation from your worldview, your perspective of what it is that you're talking about. So nobody's saying this out there, but most vendors are appealing to the insecurities of people who want to be coaches by implicitly letting them know that they don't have to confront their fears. There's a workaround. And the workaround comes in the form of guarantees, in the form of social proof, in the form of one size fits all, in the form of predictions, in the form of withouts, meaning you can do this without doing the thing that you're afraid of. And it's all bullshit. Like we don't teach fads. There's nothing wrong with fads as long as they sit on top of fundamentals. But without fundamentals, you cannot be successful in business. And there's no two ways around that. So that's where we come from. That's where all of our conversations are coming from. And then from that place, obviously, we're going to answer whatever questions we can. We're going to teach you guys what we think you need to know. Sometimes we're going to address what we know you're thinking. And sometimes we're going to address what we know you're not thinking, but you should be thinking, but you don't know that you should be thinking it because it's just beyond your current view, right? You can't see what's around the corner. So that's where we're coming from. We're coming from decades of experience in neurotransformational coaching. So what does that mean? That means helping people change their neurology, helping people change their neurological experience of the world, helping people experience things that they want to experience and they're currently not, or they're not experiencing it at the level that they want to, or helping people stop experiencing things like fears and traumas and frustrations and conflict and all that stuff, all the negative stuff that, in quotes, negative stuff that people don't want to experience. A lot of that can be completely dissolved. A lot of it that can't be completely dissolved. It can be lowered. It can be decreased. It can be managed. And so that's what the whole idea of neurotransformational coaching is. So I wanted to give you that foundation, kind of a macro view, so that you can look through that lens with everything that we're going to talk about in this series of videos. So in this short video, part one of the discussion of the tenets of neurotransformational coaching, we're going to get into the first 3. They're not ordered sequentially. Like number 1 doesn't necessarily come first, and number 2 doesn't necessarily require number 1. And what you'll probably find out is every single one of them, it's our favorite. Like the most important one is whatever one we're currently talking about, because they're all tied for first.
Yeah.
So anything you want to add before getting into the tenet number 1, Michelle?
Yeah, I want to say 2 things. One is that everything that you were describing, even though it might sound like it's not because it goes against all the program that you were talking about, it is actually easier because it's not just about like hitting success and then falling down. Because I think with the fad, you could hit success, right? You could bounce up and touch it. but we're talking about maintaining success, stabilizing success, and then if you so desire, being able to scale the success. And if and when we have that foundation, going through that process is actually easier because we are more stabilized and then trying to stabilize our businesses versus being unstable and trying to use these outside strategies in order to be able to fake stability in order to ideally attract people, clients, business, so that we can have the stability.
Yeah, it's a really important point that you can't work around stability. And in this case, we're talking about business stability, which is success at a lower level. We've got videos already, and we'll talk about this in future videos, especially if you're new to us, where there are 4 levels of business success. And stability is the first one. Scaling and sustaining are 2 of the things that a lot of the marketing is teaching us how to do. But scaling something that's not yet successful is not only a waste of time, it's actually dangerous.
Yeah.
If you try to scale something that's not successful, you're going to lose money. You're probably going to get frustrated. You might lose desire. It's emotionally and financially and businessally dangerous to scale something that's not stable, something that's not successful. And but the scaling part is the sexy part.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I can do all this and not spend a whole lot of time, or I can speak to a bunch of people at once. And it's like, and it's not false. It's just not aligned, or it's not in the right order. So I think that most people that are spending money in the coaching market that don't end up succeeding, they're not making wrong choices. They're making right choices at the wrong time. And making right choices at the wrong time is worse than making wrong choices. That's one of the reasons why it's so difficult for a lot of people to assess what's the actual problem here. Because I didn't make a wrong choice. Right. You just didn't make it at the right time. And you're trying to scale something that's not stable. You're trying to scale something that's not successful. You're trying to sustain something that's not stable or successful. So yes, later to that strategy, right? So it's a muddy ocean when we get into entrepreneurship in general, but coaching specifically. With all that being said, we're going to get into the first 3 tenets of transformational coaching. These are pillars of this kind of work that I believe you have to believe in. Otherwise, you can't do this kind of work. Now, neurotransformational coaching is not the only kind of coaching. It's not the best kind of coaching. It's just our kind of coaching. So we operate in a certain lane, and there are other valid coaching strategies and philosophies that operate in other lanes. And us telling you what is true about this lane doesn't necessarily mean that the other lanes are invalid, or that the other lanes are worse in any way, or that the other lanes are less important or anything like that. There's just different lanes. So for instance, people are doing real estate coaching, let's say, teaching people how to flip houses and make money. Cool. Most of this stuff doesn't apply to that kind of coaching, because that kind of coaching doesn't cause people to come into conflict with their relationship with money and what their life mission is and their emotional conflicts and all that sort of stuff. Like, you just don't need that kind of confrontation in those other lanes. So everything that we talk about is specific to this lane of coaching, which is neurotransformational coaching. So the first one is that it's all about forward momentum. Never poo-poo progress is one of the mantras that we have in our community. Never poo-poo progress. But progress is a tricky word, because for most people, progress is linear, meaning progress always looks like this, Yeah. And if you're not seeing my video, it's like the line that we see on graphs that's going up. And it also is going in the right direction. So progress for most people means you're making tangible progress, like you're making money or you're getting clients in the coaching world, or you're getting something, you're winning essentially, right? By whatever the metrics are, and you're doing it in the right direction. In neurotransformational coaching, there is no right direction because we don't know what the right direction is. We only know what the wrong direction is, which is whatever the human wants to change. So if you're not experiencing life the way you want it, I can't know what the right recipe is, but I know what the wrong one is. It's whatever you're following now. And sometimes that recipe needs to be fully thrown out and all the ingredients shifted. And sometimes you just need to put 2 cups of something in instead of 1 cup. Like you might not even need a new ingredient. You might not even need to take an ingredient out, but the current recipe isn't working. So anything other than the current recipe is now progress. And if you adopt that worldview and understand that what we're talking about, neurotransformational coaching, has as its goal healing and evolution, and a lot of these non-linear movements in life, more connectedness, more presence. Like you can't measure that stuff in the way that we measure money in the bank. So if you understand that the metrics here are intangible, then it's massively freeing to redefine what progress is. And progress is now not being tomorrow where you are today. If you use your linear thinking, most of the time when you're going in the right direction of neurotransformational growth and healing, the signs will tell you you're going in the wrong direction. And so if you pay attention to all the normal signs that we're used to, the discomfort, the lack of certainty, the I don't know what's next, the people are looking at me weird, I wasn't prepared for this feeling, I thought it was going to look a different way, but it looks this way, and I thought it was going to feel a different way, and I thought it was going to go faster. All the predictions and the expectations that are not met, if you follow the signs that you're used to, they will all tell you you're going the wrong way when in fact you're actually going the right way. What do you want to add to that?
This is really important as a new coach to have this mentality that it's so important not to poo-poo progress, and that it is about the forward momentum. Because I remember as a new coach, I would definitely see the end game, like the big breakthrough or the huge transformation, like that was the only win. And so this actually gave me something to kind of anchor around to, so that I also at the beginning felt good about myself as a coach. Felt like I actually was making a difference, that I was supporting my clients in their forward momentum and progress.
Okay, so you clarified at the end. So you're talking about, as a coach, these are the metrics for success for your client. And they apply both ways. So as a coach trying to build your business, you've got to apply this to your journey as well. But what Michelle just talked about is applying it to your client's journey, so that you're not always going to create this crazy, massive skies opening up and the seas parting ways and people growing 2 inches immediately. Like, you're not going to create those breakthroughs all the time.
Right.
And the more that you try to direct your clients into those breakthroughs, the worse coach you're going to be.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't so much a clarification of what you said. It was just an application the other way also.
Yeah, it's huge.
To both, so that we apply it, because this is a concept, right? This is a concept that's applied to human growth. So your success as a coach in building your business fits that, but then the work that you do with other clients fits that also. If you're doing any kind of transformational coaching, or what we call neurotransformational coaching. Transformation is a word that's so watered down too, by the way. I'll have to dive into that at some point, or deeper into that. All right. So the next one here, number 2, is, this is my favorite. After the first, the other one was my favorite, but I'm talking about this one now. So this is now my favorite. Keep people at choice with 100% responsibility. Now, this one is more, well, first of all of these are really created from a certification standpoint, meaning we do a lot of certifications in our company. And these are all created from what Michelle was just talking about, which is your work as a coach with your clients, right? And this one specifically is in that direction that we want to talk about, because what so many coaches are just inclined to do is give answers and answer people's questions with their answers. The coach wants to answer clients' questions with the coach's answers. And most of the time with neurotransformational coaching, it's not a good idea. If you're a real estate coach and somebody says, how do I find houses that are up for sale? And you're like, well, I don't know. Where do you think you can find houses?
I'm not going to hire you.
Different lane.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about with neurotransformational coaching, you need to keep people at choice, because whatever they choose is going to, number one, be more real for them. And sometimes it's just a language difference. The way they would language something is different than the way you would language it. But that's important. Or they might come up with something totally different than what you would have said, because that's what's relevant to them and it's not what was relevant to you. So the truth in what comes out, their truth is always going to be greater when they choose whatever it is, whether it's options or reframes or what certain things could actually lead to on a grander scale. What they say and what they choose is always going to be more real for them because they said it. But the second thing is, whatever somebody chooses, they'll commit to more because it's their choice. And I'm sure we've all had scenarios where somebody told us what to do, whether it was our parents telling us that we needed to be a doctor or a lawyer. And at some point in time, we realized, actually, this wasn't ever my goal. Right. If something's not your choice and your target, then you're going to constantly need, I don't know that I've ever thought of it this way. And hopefully it comes clear out of my mouth the way it just clarified in my head. If the goal is given to you externally, the fuel must also be given to you externally. Mm-hmm. Forever. Yeah. So if you find yourself constantly needing external fuel, that could come in the form of answers or strategy or motivation or inspiration, you probably are not aligned with your goals. Mm-hmm. Because meaning your goals are not aligned with your mission or your values or your beliefs or your desires. Because if they are, you won't need external fuel, right? If somebody else says, this is what you need to keep going, it's probably because at some point in time, they said, this is what you want. And if I give you what you want, then I'm probably going to have to give you what you need to go after it, right? So that's just a way to assess ourselves and see whether the inspiration is coming from inside. And so the more that we search for strategies, now I'm thinking like from a business standpoint, if you're building your business, the more that you're searching externally for strategies or other people's confidence or other people to take the risk away from you, you're probably not aligned in your goals. And it just keeps cycling, meaning the more that you search and the more that you don't find what you're looking for, the more you'll probably need to search externally further. It's just one of the ways our minds work. It's, sunk cost sort of idea. Like you just keep going in that same direction. Mm-hmm. So as a coach, we want to do everything we can to make sure that our clients are choosing as much as possible so that they can stay in responsibility. Mm-hmm. If somebody is not responsible for something, they can't manage it, they can't control it, they don't have agency, they really don't have the ability to own that thing. Yeah. So we are taking our clients' ownership away if we're constantly giving them answers. And the final thing I'll say, throw it over to you, is that doesn't mean 100% of the time. This kind of coaching is more art than science. It's based on a lot of science, but a lot of what we're talking about here, there's artistry involved, meaning what you say to one client isn't necessarily the same thing you're going to say to the other client, even if they ask you the exact same questions. Yeah. And if that frustrates you, then I would say two things. Either you don't have the embodied certainty yet to understand what mastery actually is in this lane of coaching, or this lane's not for you. And either one of those is fine, right? We're not shaming anybody. We just don't do that. So it's not like you're the problem, but either you need to get in the water to learn how to swim, or this water is not for you. Then, I mean, either one of those is fine.
Absolutely. And I was thinking, because of how you redefined progress at the beginning, that there's an opportunity here inside of this tenet for our clients to create their own definition of success, right? Like really redefining, instead of operating under all the things that they think they should be doing, what does success mean to them? And then it becomes, the actions become more driven from a place of desire and design than like a task, a chore,
Right.
like I have to do. And I'm sure at some point in time we'll do a video about this, but I was thinking when you were talking about the advisement, right, and the teaching, the instruction on coaching, transformational coaching sessions, is that a lot of times it's because we're asking them questions that they maybe have never been asked before. And inside of that, if we're uncomfortable with their uncertainty, then we're going to want to jump in and be able to advise and direct and kind of take that choice away from them, because we need to feel a sense of ownership to feel that stabilization.
Yeah. And then we become the parent that is watching their 4-year-old try to put a puzzle together and they can't figure it out. So the parent guides their hand and robs the 4-year-old from ever learning how to do puzzles, and could genuinely like actually create. And I'm not, I mean, this might sound humorous, but like, this is, I'm not trying to be funny. Like, this is truth. You could create puzzle trauma for that kid. So the next time they see puzzles, or for the rest of their lives, when they see puzzles, they're actually afraid of trying because they've never had the experience of figuring it out themselves. And so we can do that same thing as coaches and remove people's confidence by getting in there and messing it up, and, you know, holding their hand and putting the puzzle piece where it goes, because we're uncomfortable with the time when the person is learning, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. The kid's never uncomfortable when they're trying to solve puzzles. It's the adult that's uncomfortable. The kid's just going through learning. That's how learning is. So it's us being uncomfortable with the process of learning, and then we go in and we sabotage the learning.
Yeah, and create dependency.
Yeah, which is great for the ego.
Sure.
You know, great for the ego. Sometimes it could be a good business strategy, business model.
That's
It's
true.
not good for the client.
Yeah, that part.
And at some point, you can only be dependent, you know, on so many people, right? Because you only have so many nipples that people can.
All right, number 3.
I just got this visual of like a, you know, how many babies can a pig milk? Just however many nipples she has, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, it's too many babies. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, but that was pretty smooth transition. Like, all right. So number 3. Finally, last few minutes here is to focus on action and controllable activities.
Yeah.
What a lot of people do is set goals and then just focus on the achievement of the goals. But a lot of the goals that we want to achieve are not controllable by us. They involve other people. So if you want to be a coach and you set a goal to get 5 clients over the next 2 months, that's not a controllable goal, because somebody else has to say yes, and then they have to pay you. And as long as somebody else needs to participate, your goal is not controllable. So instead of getting 5 paying clients, your goal might be to make 30 offers to people, write 30 proposals, or verbally give 30 proposals, or it might be to have 50 interviews with people. And by the way, I'm throwing much bigger numbers because that's usually how it works. If you want 5 paying clients, you got to get into a lot of conversations to work their way down to 5. And with that focus on the activity, now you have a chance. If you do what most people do, which is just focus on the achievement of the thing you cannot control, unless you are a part of the really small percentage of humans, and I'm talking like 2 to 3% of people that operate optimally that way, unless you're a part of that, which most of you are not, You probably wouldn't be if you're watching this channel or you've watched any of our videos and watched another one. Like you might catch one and go and figure out like, I don't align with this. But if you watch multiple videos, then you're probably not that person, because you're probably part of what we call the 97%, because that's who we speak to, because that's who we resonate with. So if you operate as though you're one of those people that can just focus on the goals and that provides the motivation, and you're just going to go until you achieve that stuff, it's not going to work.
Right.
And if it does, it's worse. If you succeed in a way that's not aligned with you, I'd rather you fail. I'd rather you fail with a recipe that's not right for you than succeed with it. Because success with a misaligned recipe is misery. And I'd rather you not be miserable and successful. I'd rather you be frustrated and unsuccessful so that you can find the recipe than successful and miserable, because that's a recipe for, literally, it's a recipe for depression. It's a recipe for being defeated. It's a recipe for feeling hollow and shallow and empty. So if you're not following your aligned recipe, I hope it fails.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
This actually, I'll be fast. This connects to the first thing that you said about not poo-pooing progress, because the reality is, if I'm doing the things that I can control, then I get to tell myself that I'm doing a good job. Then I get to feel good because I did the things that I can control, and I can celebrate that action. And all of that is progress along the journey as a coach. And then also our clients get to do the same. So maybe that thing that they desire, that relationship isn't ideally where they want it to be, but they're taking steps and they can see that and know that. And that can be the progress for them.
Huge. So there's so much more to dive into with all of these tenets and all the conversations and applications and examples and all that sort of stuff. And we're going to be doing a bunch of videos going forward. So there's going to be a lot of time for a lot of interaction. Please keep sending questions. We're starting a campaign here to be transparent with you all that is leading to a 5-day certification course. It's called ECCP. We're going to keep bringing you conversations that we think are important, whether you're asking them or we think you should be asking them, to help you become a certain and successful neurotransformational coach, if that's the lane of coaching that you want to be in.
Well, if you like this video and you want to keep going in this discussion, check out that video right there, which is the next video in this conversation about the 12 tenets of transformational coaching.
When you're doing this work, one of the most important things you can do is simply just be present with your clients. And when you're present, you are going to be opened up to more